What's going on, guys? RagingRaptor here, and I welcome you to a new World of Tanks video. And today I wanna talk about 9 tips and tricks about how to be a better scout tank driver in the game. Because I think scouts are probably the most challenging, but also the most rewarding tank class to play in the game. It is one which I like to play the most, and well, there's a reason why I just think that it is, because you basically have to know every single game mechanic in the game. If it is the 50-meter rule, if it is how to spot your enemies, if it is knowing when you are getting spotted, and so on and so forth. And this is why I want to talk today about 9 tips and 1 bonus tip on how to get good in those light tanks and what to do to get better in light tanks, because then again they are a great class. Like, especially in medium tiers, you can do absolutely amazing stuff if you're getting good at them, and you can carry quite effectively on many maps. Not on most or all of them, but on many maps. Also, at the end of the video, I'm going to leave a timestamp down below. We're going to have a quick little giveaway, which runs till the 30th of September, my birthday. And we're going to give away those 5 codes I still have left from Gamescom. Hooray! Anyway, without further ado, let's start with the first tip. The first one I have for you is getting, well, the tank set up correctly with the right equipment. And this can be quite interesting, because I already talked about this in my German channel, and there is quite the how should I say, the diversion or the distinction between 2 different playstyles. I usually would say there are 2 main playstyles, which I'm also going to talk about later in this video, and it's the more passive approach and the more active approach. And I usually play the more active approach, and in the more active approach you are usually going to take tank gun rammer, vents, and optics. I also have to say though that I talked yesterday about this with Keyhand as well as with the Felix. Keyhand being a Fame player, which is incredibly good at the game, and Felix being the German community manager as well as the good player himself as well. And he jokingly said, "Ooh, you're playing with vents? Are you kidding me?" And in one video where you could see Keyhand playing the LHMTV, which I did, he also played with vertical stabilizer instead of vents, and those are 2 philosophies, because I personally always want to have the maximum DPM and the maximum fuelage I can get with getting away with it, and I see as vents being the most or the best option for that, because not only do you have more accuracy, better aim time, better camouflage, better fuel range, etc, 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 everything is 5% better, hence why I love using vents on most tanks. However, I also totally understand the approach that Keyhand and Felix is going with using their vertical stabilizer, because vertical stabilizer allows you to do more shots on the move, and it also makes your tank a little bit less RNG based when you are not fully aimed in, and this can definitely work into your favor, especially when you're playing the new released British light tanks, because they're absolutely horrendous when it comes to accuracy on the move. But again, those are 2 philosophies, and I have to say you have to try both of them if you want to know which one is best. However, there is also a third way, or in my opinion the second real option, and this is to use vents, camonet, and binos. And I have to say that this approach is much more cheaper to pull off and is much better suited for a new scout tank player or a new player in general, because not only are binos and camonets something you sometimes even get from a merit, but they're also rather cheap. Especially for light tanks, vents are incredibly cheap. They're around 50 to 100,000 credits. So is the camonet, which is another 100,000, and the binos, well, they are 500,000. But again, vents and the binos you can easily take away from your tank without paying any gold or anything else. This approach, however, is, in my opinion, again, my personal opinion, not the most effective one, because you have the worst impact into the game. Yes, on maps like Prokhorovka or Malinovka, you can do wonders. Even on Karelia, you can do amazing stuff with just staying in a bush, spotting everybody because you have binos and because you have camo nets. It also has to be noted that this is also obviously my personal preferred way, can vary when it comes to different tank tiers. When I'm, for example, when I want to play the AMX ELC BIS, the tier 5 French light tank, I'm not going to use optics because, quite frankly, I have not enough view range for them. So I'm just going to use binos. And this is something you should also keep in mind, because that in lower tiers you won't really get the 445 meters of view range you will need. But in general rule, for higher tiered, it's good to either use vents, optics and rammer, or optics, rammer and vertical stabilizer. Two of these for the higher tiers, and for lower tiers or for being a new player, I would highly recommend to use vents, binos and camo net. Well, I'm not saying optics and binos because, quite frankly, as far as I know, they do not stack together. Yes, it can work when you want to drive into a bush and you already want to have good view range, and then you have even better view range because you're using binos, but they don't stack, so I usually take one of each. And excuse me, either one of them, because, well, you don't really want to waste any one of your module slots. But now, let's go to the next tip. And the next one is going to be map knowledge. You have to know your maps, at least somewhat. You have to know where you can go, where you are effective, where you can spot, where you can do damage. And I think in a light tank you learn this the best, because not only are you a fast tank, not only are you a fast tank and a flexible tank, but you're also a tiny combat machine, depending what scout tank you're playing. And this can help you quite tremendously to get to know those maps. You can get around quickly, you can flank the enemies, you can try out new positions with tanks you don't really usually would try them to. But also it is important to know that even if I'm, for example, saying, oh yes, on the map Malinovka you should go, for example, into this and this bush, it doesn't mean that in 100% of the cases it's going to work. This is the interesting part about World of Tanks. There is not a position which always works. There are positions which work in the most cases, but they will never work 100% of the time. So usually when I would say I would be doing a map guide, I would generally tell you to just take those as a lead, but not as given and not as God's word, basically. Because again, the map positions, they can change, and depending on the layout of the enemy team, depending what tier you're playing, or maybe simply because they change it. Like this can happen, that they're changing the map. It rarely happens, but it can happen. Just to keep that in mind. Again, there is no position on every single map which is 100% correct. But it generally can help you to know the basic ones, so you can try to go to them and try to achieve a decent game. It also has to be noted that if you know good positions on the map, please keep in mind that you also have a look at your minimap down there. Because, well, sometimes you also have more than just one light tank. You're not the only light tank in the team, and sometimes your other light tank also wants to go into the position you wanted to go. And then I have just to say, please use your head and think that, well, if he is too stubborn to see that I would be there first and he just keeps on wanting to go there, take a different position, go there, because two light tanks at the same position are most of the time useless. Or one of which is at least being useless. Just to keep that in mind. But then again, it doesn't count for every single position. Nevertheless, on to the next tip. And this is about crew skills. And crew skills are incredibly important on light tanks, because usually they are the tank class with the least amount of crew members. So you have to choose wisely which crew you should take. There again, I have to say that usually I have two different approaches. The first one being obviously the try-hard approach, and the one for players which are a tad better at the game, because you can compensate for missing crew skills like repairs. And the other one is the more casual approach. I want to talk first about the more casual approach. The only real difference in the casual approach is that you completely forget about Brothers in Arms. Because then again, for a casual player, it is much more important to not only get Sixth Sense, but also getting Camouflage. Like, when it comes to Scout, Tank, Crew skills, Camouflage, Sixth Sense, and Few range skills. Those are the three or trifecta of what you need. Camouflage, it's pretty obvious. You have to get into position stealthy without getting spotted. Sixth Sense, you have to know if you're spotted or not. And few range skills to just boost your few range and try to get more out of it. And well, just try to spot the enemies before they do you, or have camo breaking. About camo breaking, I'm just going to talk in the next tip, just quickly. And yeah, the few range skills, we have one for the commander, which is, I think it's called Deadeye. No, it's not a Deadeye. It's give me a second. Well, we also have one for the commander. It's Recon. There we go. And for the for the radio operator, we have situational awareness. If you have to choose between two of them because your commander is also your radio operator, please take situational awareness first, because it gives you 3%, while Recon only gives you 2%. But if your if your fuel ports are broken, you have more view range. But this is it's negligible. Like, it's not something you should work on. Again, if you have to choose between situational awareness or Recon, please take situational awareness, as it gives you more. Other than that, this is basically it. If you have those 3 major crew skills, you can take whatever you want. But then again, I highly recommend for casual and newer players to not take Brothers in Arms, because it's a huge investment, and you need Camouflage and you need Brothers in Arms. And you need Sixth Sense. Those are the 2 major skills. After that, again, you can take few range skills, and then maybe you can think about taking Brothers in Arms. If you are a more active player and you have more time, or you even have 0 skill Bria crews because you are pumping money into this game, well, then take Brothers in Arms. Like, you should know what you're doing in the end, and Brothers in Arms is a good skill. It gives you 5% on anything. But again, it is a huge investment, especially when you have a crew which has only 3 crew members or maximum of 4. It is a big investment which can be kind of frustrating to work with, in my personal opinion. So again, just to keep that in your mind. Other than that, on crew skills, what I usually like to take is something like better accuracy on the move, like Snapshot and Smooth Ride. I usually don't really take repairs on lights, and I had a discussion about this as well with Phil yesterday, and this is due to the fact that I am thinking, if I'm getting hit in a light tank, I made something terrible wrong. If I am not getting hit in a light tank, I did good. No, seriously, in all honesty, I think that using repairs on most light tanks is not that good, because you don't have a lot of HP anyway, so it's kind of wasted potential, in my personal opinion. Or it's wasted time, at least. You could use it on other things. And you have a repair kit, or you should have a repair kit, let's say it like that. So yeah, using repairs is kind of meh. On to the next tip. Tip number 4 is about game mechanics. You have to know your game mechanics, and I already talked about this beforehand. Game mechanics are key, and there are the most important one is your 15-meter rule, meaning that if you have a bush in front of you and it is transparent and you shoot, the bush loses his camouflage value, which it gives you as a bonus. If this bush is not transparent and it's just thick and you can't see through it, it is 50 meters away from you and you can shoot without the bush losing its camouflage. This is one of the most important rules to know in the game, and it helps you on every single tank class, but it's the most important for scouts as well. Because, excuse me, Not only do you have a very tiny amount of HP most of the time, but you also have the ability to use bushes properly. You can go into a bush, spot the enemy, drive backwards, use the 50-meter rule, and bam, 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 shoot them. It's also important to know what you can overmatch and what you can do with your bushes, like if you can get spotted or not. Knowing which bush roughly gives what type of camo bonus, even though most of them I think give 50%. It's also important that if you, for example, try to free mark a light tank, I would highly recommend to use an Excel sheet where you are going to calculate roughly when you are going to get spotted on an open field. This is what I did. Like, again, I'm this of an autist. Excuse me, I don't want to make jokes of autists, but I am that stupid to actually do this and actually try to think about it when I free marked the EBR 105. I have an Excel sheet which shows me when, for example, the enemy has 460 meters of view range, when I will be spotted on the open field when not shooting. And I can only really recommend trying to use this as well when you know what is your camouflage value on your tank, so you have a rough idea on when you are going to get spotted when you're shooting or not, or when you're just moving around or not. Because then again, a scout tank, because it's a light tank, it doesn't lose its camouflage on the move. Please keep that in mind, because that's also something very important to know. This is what makes light tanks pretty good to get into key positions which can be contested and you don't want to get spotted in first. Like, this is what I mean when I'm talking about knowing game mechanics. But yeah, let's go to tip number 5. Next tip: who is your enemy? And this is probably, in my opinion, one of the most important ones. You have to know what can your enemy do, what is he capable of, what is his tank, what is his pros and cons. Like, right now, I see so many people on Reddit, on YouTube videos of mine, on Facebook, in chat, and so on and so forth, talking about how broken, how overpowered the wheeled vehicles are, and how trash it is to play that against them when you are a normal tank, or normal light tank. That's true if you're playing British tanks, but then again, the British light tanks are absolute garbage. But if you know what you're doing, if you use, for example, your view range advantage, your knowledge of map, you can easily outplay an enemy wheeled vehicle. Like, it is actually surprisingly simple to outplay a Lynx when you are, for example, a HWK30. It is pretty easy to outplay a Lynx in an LHMTV when you're all knowing what you're doing. And if you want to see that, please consider subscribing to my channel, because I'm going to show that in an upcoming video where I played an LHMTV versus an Lynx, and I can just show you how easy it actually is to outplay them when you have enough space. You don't go in for a knife fight, because that's stupid. This is what I mean. You have to know, is your enemy capable of knife fighting you? What can you do? Like, if you are, for example, a T-37, you shouldn't really go into a knife fight against the AMX 12T, because, well, the 12T has a 4-clip autoloader and it can cripple you. It can, even if he gets lucky, 1-clip you. Or even if you are already lost some HP, it can 1-clip you. So you now are not going to YOLO in and try to kill him, because that would be stupid. You wait for him to be on a reload, or you wait for him to waste 1 or 2 shots even before you say, you know what, bada bam, bada bam, I'm going to get you now. This is what I mean when I talk about who is your enemy. Also, when you are on different maps, you sometimes see, oh, he has a wheeled vehicle, meaning he's probably going to play aggressive. Now I have to go into my spotting position a little bit less aggressive, maybe more cautiously, because he could immediately jump over the ridge and spot me and I'm dead, for example. Those are the things which you always have to keep on thinking and knowing what to do about them. Please keep that in mind, because this is incredibly important. But now let's go to the next tip, which is about map awareness, or rather minimap awareness. First of things first, please make your minimap bigger. Do it like Skillful LTU, make it a maxi map, or how I do it, and make it maxi and then just put it 1 notch down. Because you have to know what is going on your game. You have to know, do you have backup? Does the enemy try to push your flank, etc, etc. Because Breaking it down, World of Tanks is an incredible simple game to win. Really, it is that simple. One enemy is pushing one flank, so what are you doing? You go to the other and push the other flank. Bam! Finished! It's so easy. Like, I'm not making this up. It's generally how the majority of World of Tanks games are going. And I just have to say, please, 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 please look at your minimap. I don't want you to YOLO into the enemy and then just die. Because you didn't have backup, because you thought, oh yeah, I can try to... Like, even, for example, you are on a map like Malinovka and you see you can go on charge and YOLO the enemy artillery. If you don't have any backup, it's not a good idea, because you're probably going to die while... and the enemy RT is probably just, when they are free, just one is probably dying because your artillery is not going to hit. So please, please don't just YOLO charge anything every time. Look at your minimap, see if you have backup, if you can go in. If there isn't backup, maybe just go a little bit more passively. Drive backwards, try to defend your base a little bit. In many maps, you can have a decent spot position in attacking and defending different positions. So just to keep in mind always to have some feedback or some backup from your allies. This can help you tremendously to get better at the game, because again, the most important thing about to gain now win rate or get better at the game is to be better than your counterpart in the enemy team. Do more spot damage, do more damage in general than your counterpart in the enemy team. If you achieve this, good for you, because then you are doing good. If not, then you have to ask yourself, what went wrong? I want to be better than my counterpart. I want to be a useful asset for my team. And if you know what is going on your map, awesome sauce, because then you know what you have done right and what you can do next. Again, there's no point into YOLOing down one lane with just one guy as a backup and then dying and then rating at your team for not helping you. There's no point in it. It annoys people, it is stupid, and it wasted your life. Next tip is also pretty important when you, for example, are top tier or in general. Use your gun. You have a gun for a reason. You're not just a tank which has nothing there. You have it. Many light tanks in the game have potent guns and guns they can work with, except for the British light tanks, but that's a whole other story. For example, the AMX ELC Biz has an incredible huge gun which can do 240 damage, and basically if he gets lucky, one shot people with HE when he pens. This is ridiculous if you think about it. In general, using your gun is just, in my opinion, super important in the game, because you can do so much. You can carry games basically when you know what you're doing with a light tank. This makes the game again so much more fun if you know what you're doing. When you are top tier, don't be scared and only try to spot. Also try to play aggressively. Use your tank. You are a little You're a little fighter tank. You can use your gun and be effective in the team. And this is also how you manage to get a decent chunk of what's it called? Of gun mark when you try to go for it. Using damage, doing damage, trying to help your team to win is incredibly important, and this is basically how you do it. Use your gun, do damage when you have the option to. Obviously not when you are in Malinovka in a spotting bush, don't shoot, that's a little bit risky. And this is also going hand in hand with your knowledge of the game mechanics, because if you know how to use the 50-meter rule, you can do great things, like genuinely great things. It happened to me. I also have a video in the pipeline where I am playing the LH-MTV on Malinovka and did like 3k damage if I'm not mistaken. And still did some more spotting damage, and basically was the reason why we won. Because I knew how to use the 50-meter rule, I knew how to use my tank more or less effectively. And the next tip which we have is also going hand in hand with the previous one, using the right ammunition type. I know for the British light tanks it's a little bit hard because they have so little ammo, but for most light tanks it is important to know what can your ammunition type do. For example, let's take the Type 62. It has an 85mm gun which has AP, heat and HE. The HE is a little bit meh. but you can use it. The more important thing is that you have heat, for example, because now you might be a gold scrub, but you know that you can penetrate something like a Stritzwagen S1 frontally, because you can overmatch the enemy with heat, because it doesn't auto bounce. This is amazing. This is incredible important knowledge for you. Or for example, you use a different ammunition type when you know that you can penetrate an artillery piece and finish it off in 2 shots rather than 3, then go for it. That's incredibly important. When you are fighting against the Type 64, keep in mind that this tank has basically no armor whatsoever. Shoot HE at it. Even Type 64 versus Type 64, you can both shoot HE, and it actually can work pretty darn well against it. Those are all things I really want you to keep in mind while playing those tanks. In general, using the right ammunition type can make or break your game. And I genuinely think that this is something a lot of people forget, and another thing which is incredibly important. For example, when you are playing the EBR series and you're in the tier 10 vehicle, I usually don't shoot HE against other EBRs because it's risky. I tend to bounce them, and on longer distances APCR is just so much quicker and much more likely to hit than HE is. Those are things you just have to keep in mind. Know what you are doing when you are using or choosing that ammunition type. But yeah, on to the last tip for today. Long video, I know. Passive versus active scouting. I personally think that sometimes they just blend into each other when you are doing it correctly. But usually you have 2 types of playstyles. You can either go into bush, use a camouflage, you binos, and you're a passive scout. Or you can play actively and go left, right, and try to spot people this way, which, well, the new French light tanks are best at, basically. But I think the best or the most effective way is to play it as a mixture. In the beginning of the game, I'm usually playing passively. I'm taking a decent position, try to spot people, try to do some first spots so I know where the enemies are going, and so on and so forth. But after that, I can, when I know where the enemies are, I can try to play more actively, try to engage the enemy properly. And this is something I think that a lot of people just forget about when they play light tanks, and this is why I think it is the hardest class to master in the game. You have to know both playstyles. You have to know that you can be passively, don't do anything much, just spot. But then you also have to know when to active scout, when you do the active move, to give your team the leading edge on winning. And I can just say either you just learn it yourself by playing a lot, or just watch different streamers playing light tanks, because it can absolutely help you a lot. And yeah, feel free to visit me and see me playing light tanks. Just ask if I should play light tanks or not. And yeah, that's it for the tips. We have just one more, and that's a bonus tip. If you want to learn light tanks, I can highly recommend to start playing tier 6 and tier 7 lights, because this is where you have a decent chunk of view range, and you can use your knowledge of view range and of spotting mechanics, because on higher tiers, especially on tier 10, most tanks already have 470 to 500 meters of view range. No, I'm not talking about scouts, I'm talking about heavies and medium tanks, and even TDs. So it is hard there to learn scouts. So I think that tier 6 to tier 7 is the best. T37, for example, is an amazingly cool scout. And it can help you wonders in starting to know and get used to the game. Another tank which I think is amazing is the AMX ELC BIS. I know it's a tier 5 one, but you'd basically learn so much in this tank. You learn how to be active, how to be passive, how to have influence into the game, overmatch, and so on and so forth. You learn so much in this tank. It's hard, but it's very rewarding if you know what you're doing. And that about does it. Thank you so much for your attention. If you enjoyed today's video, please consider leaving a like and a subscribe. And well, now we are going to talk about the giveaway in just a second. If you enjoyed the video, again, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. Let me know what I can do better. In today's video, I used a little bit of a script to not really get sidetracked to that much. Still, the video is incredibly long. Sorry for that, but what can you do? On to the giveaway. So, about the giveaway. Well, I am going to give away some small stuff which I still have left over from the Gamescom, and the giveaway is going to run until the 30th of September, because that's my birthday. I don't know why, but it's a good thing, I think. And I have in total 3 times 14 days of premium, a Panzerkampfwagen T15, 7 days of premium, a Panzerkampfwagen T15, as well as 14 days of a Primo Victoria free trial. And I have 2 codes for the 43 M-Toldi-3, which is a tier 3 light tank, which is German, but actually it's Hungarian. So yeah, I have those things. If you want to participate, please go into the comment section below at the pinned comment where I have a Gleam.io link. What you have to do is just to basically go in and subscribe to my YouTube channel, visit it. If you want to have more trials and more luck, well, you can also follow me on Twitch, as well as maybe even give it a sub, because it's September, it's super cheap right now. And lastly, visit my Instagram page, which is more about, what's it called? More about German stuff, but you will sometimes see my, well, my view, my pets, my things, my everything. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed the video, and cheers, guys.